Are you here for excellence or mediocrity? Well, that's for you to decide. But one thing's for sure, if you're aiming for mediocrity, you're not going to hang around our next speaker for very long, who's all about aiming for excellence and to be your very best. His name is Dr. John Minardi, and Nimrod caught up with him for this fascinating conversation. And he's going to ask you the question, are you ready to be extraordinary? Are you ready to go the extra mile? Now, John is a martial artist turned chiropractor who overcame a career-threatening injury through chiropractic care. He's in private practice and is clearly a lifelong learner. The man is mission-driven by his very definition. He's also founder of the Complete Thompson Minardi Technique seminar series and author of the Complete Thompson textbook, The Minardi Integrated Systems. This man has been known to be in full-time practice and travel up to 45 weekends a year internationally to teach and to get back to his practice and serve. John says, I've always had a great love and passion for chiropractic. It saved my life in more ways than one. My vision is to take this passion and educate not only chiropractors, but the world on the great power of the chiropractic adjustment. I hope that I can share this passion with you. And John, we're here to share your passion. Listen on, everyone. Welcome to the Questing Chiropractor podcast. We help you grow as visionary, vital, and capable chiropractors who are always on. We do things differently as we help to elegantly awaken your innate wisdom within. We help you create robust, predictable, and trustworthy practices that serve oceans of people and yet still have free time for yourselves and your families. We use neuroscience to deliver better business results so that you can get greater, deeper, and more effective impact in more ways. We are Questing Chiropractors, and this is our story.
So, very excited to be sitting here today and chatting with John Minardi. I've known John for a good number of years, and I see that his mission is only expanding in impact and in breadth as well. So, thank you for your time, John.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be here, brother. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. You too. And I know, it was a bit hard for us to grab a slot because your agenda is very full. You're in full-time practice, you're teaching, you're traveling to do that. You're still involved in ICPA, which is where I first came across you. That's a lot to fit into a day, a week, a year.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I love all this stuff. So for me, it's funny though, because before COVID, I was much busier than now. I would travel between 40 and 45 weekends a year plus
Wow.
full-time practice. So
Mm,
in comparison to that, I'm not busy, but
mm,
it's still a full schedule, but I love
yeah.
that stuff. So it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say you love it, what keeps you on mission there? What is it you love about it?
Well, truthfully, I love seeing the light bulb turn on in people's brains. People ask me all the time, do I prefer teaching or practice? Well, that's a hard question because I love both. But if I
Mm,
had to pick one, it would be teaching because over the years, it's been 23 years of teaching, right? 23 years of teaching, 23 years
mm,
of practice. And over the 23 years, just seeing so many people come up to me at every event saying, listen, you changed the way I practice. I never saw chiropractic like this before. I was going to quit being a chiropractor, but now I'm going to
mm,
move on. When you hear that and you think of the impact that that individual now has
yeah.
on their community, on their world, that's what I love about it so much. That's why I continue my mission as much as I can.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you're certainly one of the most on mission and energetic people that I know in the profession who is there to expand how we do it is that we do. So, when people do come up to you and they say, I see chiropractic in a way that I didn't before, what is it they're seeing now?
Well, number one, unfortunately, a lot of schools out there, not all, but a lot of schools have become very pain-based, and that's happened for a long, long time. And so you see young chiropractors come up to me and say, "Man, I was trained that we can only help with back pain. I was trained that we can only help with neck pain. And you've opened up my eyes and how we can actually affect the brain. And that's how so many people are getting better globally. Their health is globally getting better under chiropractic care. And you literally see the light bulb turn on in their head like, oh my God, that's why so-and-so told me that they can sleep better at night. Oh my God, that's how so-and-so told me that their constipation is gone. Not that chiropractic cures any of this stuff, but our effect on the brain can allow that individual patient's brain to heal their body. And I think that's the biggest thing that's turning people's minds on to be like, oh my God, chiropractic's a lot more powerful than I was ever led to believe from my school or from what I heard in my past experience.
Yeah. So you think a lot of these chiropractors are graduating, not realizing that the effect is above the spinal segment.
Exactly, exactly. So many people are trained. Oh, do you have low back pain? Let's only look between L1 and L5 then for the problem. Oh, you have neck pain? Okay, only look from C1 to C7. And the sad part, Nimrod, is a lot of schools now are I can't say a lot because only the students that have come up to me recently have been telling me this a lot these days. There are certain schools out there that are like, you know what? You don't actually have to adjust. Let's just, stretch out the
Mm,
area. And
mm,
I just like that breaks my soul. You know what I mean? So
mm,
when I hear stuff like that, it really pushes me to continue my mission because I
mm.
really want people to understand the power of the adjustment, what it does to the brain, and how that helps overall global health.
Yeah. So, John, when you say it hurts your soul, why is that? What's this fire within you?
Well, I mean, like I know that you've heard my personal story in the past. Maybe not everyone has, but I grew up in a very rough neighborhood. I made very poor choices in my life early on because of that environment. And it was going to a chiropractor that literally turned my entire life around when I was 17 years old. So if it wasn't for chiropractic, I'd probably be in jail or dead. Right.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
for me, I think of all that and I really believe like I owe chiropractic. So when I hear, chiropractic being distorted so much or people or certain schools being like, "Oh, we don't need the adjustment anymore." It breaks my soul because like I think to myself, what if the chiropractor I went to had that attitude? Right?
mm,
Like what if he thought, "Oh, chiropractic's only going to help this kid's low back pain. No need to talk to him about anything else. No need to
mm,
tell him he's got what it takes to be a chiropractor. No need like it would
mm.
have changed the trajectory of my life,
Yep.
right? So that's why I take it so personal, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, and that's why I fight so hard for chiropractic because, it's not hard for me, right? So
Yeah. Yep. And so, if we usually I don't get political this early on in the discussion, but I just love where you're going with this. If you were to boil chiropractic down to its very essence, how would you define it? What would you say is the important, the essential, the crucial, the vital bit of chiropractic?
I think chiropractic has always been and always will be the removal of vertebral subluxation. That's what chiropractic is. We know now that the removal of that VSC causes a direct impact on the brain. And when we remove that subluxation, and it does cause a direct impact on the brain, it's the brain that takes over and allows the different hormones, the different neurochemicals, the different stuff to go into the body to allow the body to now heal. So we called that innate intelligence for a long time because the brain and body just knew to do that, right?
Mm,
And practic didn't fully understand all of those things 100 years ago, so we couldn't fully explain it. But now the research is coming out more and more and more, showing the effect, the direct effect that we have on the brain. So I think that in it itself should be drilled in every single student and every single chiropractor out there so that we never doubt what we do.
Wow, amazing, amazing. And so I think that really speaks to safeguarding the adjustment of the vertebral subluxation to have an impact globally as the essential bit of chiropractic.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. And what would you say are the ingredients of a chiropractor to be able to deliver that adjustment well?
Well, first and foremost, I think you have to have that philosophy in chiropractic of that we are a vitality based profession, that we're not just pain based. Do individuals have pain? Yes. Is that one piece of information that we should hear from our patients? Yes, but it's not the entire puzzle. It's one piece. So if we can understand the true philosophy of chiropractic, that when you're subluxated, bad stuff is happening to the nervous system. When we adjust you, good stuff is happening to the nervous system. That's really the most basic way I can say this stuff, right? That's what we need to have right off the top. And the reason our philosophy has to be in check is because then when we set up for an adjustment, so I think part two is you have to be a phenomenal adjuster. When you set up for that adjustment in your own brain as the practitioner, you're not just thinking, oh, I'm putting a bone back in place. You're fully understanding that when you perform that adjustment, you're about to change all the information going to this individual's brain, and that's what's going to allow them to heal. So ingredient number one, I think, is a solid philosophy of what chiropractic truly is. Ingredient number two is being a great adjuster. And I think ingredient number three has to be you do need to understand the science of what we're doing so we can back up our philosophy. There's a lot
Mm,
of people in our profession that we're good friends with, Nimrod, that we've heard them speak. They're fabulous speakers. They're great speakers on philosophy. But if we push those people on, okay, well, explain how, they can't do that. And I think
mm,
that that's a detriment to our profession too. These are great individuals. They're my friends, but I always push them. You got to learn this stuff. You got to learn this stuff so that we can back up our philosophy. I think that's
mm.
another big piece of the puzzle that we
Mhm.
need.
Yeah, beautiful. So if I can summarize it, it's the essence of the philosophy. It has to be crystal clear. You have to understand what that means in terms of the body, its science, its neurology, and the impact of the subluxation and the adjustment. And then you have to have mastery and excellence as you come into the adjustment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what would be the pieces there, do you think, that allow someone to, to really sink into that adjustment without the consciously thinking about every single step, but rather just being and transmitting that through the
Right.
adjustment?
Great question, because at the end of the day, we have to be in the moment of what we're doing, right? So that's why I tell people they have to be masters at adjusting. They have to be masterful at it. They have to be able to perform any adjustment on anyone, regardless of size, age, whatever, and be 1,000,000% confident up here that they're going to do a phenomenal job for their patient. And the only way that that happens is by practicing the adjustment over and over and over and over again. And unfortunately, again, just right from the student level, if you're not stressing to your students that they have to be masterful adjusters, well, hey, then why would they have the ambition to be great adjusters, right? If you can tell someone, well, you know what, just stretch them out a little bit, and that'll be the same thing as the adjustment. Well, where's the incentive to be great adjusters, right?
Mm,
Whereas if we really drill into our students and our young docs all the way up, that the adjustment is essential in differentiating what we do with anyone else on the planet. You
mm.
have to be great at this. Then I think that that would change our entire profession, the way that it's the trajectory of it right now. But really, I think I think it puts it back to what our original forefathers really wanted, which was to be great adjusters, help as many people as we can through the chiropractic adjustment.
Yeah. So before we get into, that expansive idea of how we can help more people, I want to throw something out there. I've worked a lot with students and with new grads, and it always amazes me that a mediocre adjustment has an impact.
Sure.
Like you can get a someone who's been trained for 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and they'll deliver something that's mediocre, and there's still life-changing impacts of that.
Well, yeah, and that's the craziness. It's almost like chiropractic works too well. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? But I always say to people, and you're right, like, and unfortunately, I feel that a lot of individuals fall into that. They can give a mediocre adjustment. They're like, hey, it's good enough. I'm still getting good results. What do I care? Right. But truthfully, I mean, do we really want to settle for mediocre? Like, here's the crazy thing. If you went to a restaurant, right, and you're paying a lot of money for a meal, right? You're taking your significant other there, and the meal was mediocre,
Mm,
right? You could
mm,
still eat it,
mm,
right? It
mm.
nourished you in some capacity. But
Mm,
when you left that restaurant and paid $200 for it, you're like, that wasn't worth the money, right?
that.
It was okay, but I won't go back.
Mm,
Right? That's what
mm,
we've all experienced in some capacity. Whereas
mm.
we've also experienced going to a restaurant. It was the best meal you've ever had in your life. And even if it was $200, $500, you're like, you know what? That was worth every penny. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Great night, great food. We've all experienced that. So we have to look at chiropractic like that too. Yes, You can have a mediocre meal and have a meal. You can have a
Mm,
mediocre adjustment and get some results. But what if we were great? What kind of
mm,
results, you know what I mean? What kind of results would we get then?
mm.
How many people would talk about chiropractic then if we
Yeah,
just gave phenomenal adjustments every time? But you're
yeah.
right, the fact that you can give mediocre adjustments and still get results. I think that's part of the problem of why what doesn't drive people to do better, you know?
Right. When we settle for mediocre, what is the striving to excellence? So, you just mentioned phenomenal and mastery and excellence. And what is the promise of that? Why should we strive for that? What could that really give to ourselves, our practices, our community, and the world?
Well, first of all, ourself, the biggest sense of purpose that we can have. Like if we're not seriously, Nimrod, now this is my philosophy, but the philosophy of champions in any field, I don't care if we're talking about rugby, I don't care if we're talking about chess masters, I don't care if we're talking about chefs, right? If you talk to the top people who are ranked like 1 to 5, they'll all say the same thing. They're all chasing to be number one for no other reason than they want to be the best. Number 2 to them is just the first loser, right? Like that's the mentality that they have, right? It's that sense of purpose that we are the very, very best at what we do. I'm confident that no one is a better adjuster than me. I am confident that any patient that walks in will be helped under my care. I am 100% confident in that. What that then transcends into the patient is that supreme confidence that they see in you and the doc. They sit back and they say, you think you can help me? And you say, absolutely, absolutely. They're like, oh, fantastic, fantastic. Everyone else says, oh, I don't know. Let's just kind of see what happens. And it doesn't transmit that confidence in the patient. And as soon as you have that confidence in the patient, you deliver that great adjustment. Now all of a sudden they're walking away saying, holy cow, this chiropractic thing, this is really something. I wish I would have done this 20 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever. And what are they going to do when they leave the office? They're going to go home. They're going to tell their significant other, hey, this chiropractor, I never seen anything like him before. I've been to other chiropractors, but not like this guy. Like this guy's something different, right? What is that, Nimrod?
Mm,
What well, like, because here's the crazy thing, right? We all know excellence when we see it,
mm,
right? Well, even if you don't know anything about hockey, you see Wayne Gretzky play in his heyday, he was the best that ever lived, right? Like you see Muhammad Ali boxing, best ever. Tom Brady in football, best ever. Like you see these people and you're like, oh my God, I don't know anything about basketball, but Michael Jordan was the best. How do I know that? Because all of us see greatness. Even if we can't explain it and put our finger on it, we see it. We're like, oh my God, we're in awe of it, right? That's how it can be for us too. Just shoot for the being the best. Like people always say, yeah, John, but no one's perfect. No, you're right. So I'll settle for excellence. I'll settle for excellence. Right. So that's my personal philosophy. And I really would love to ingrain that in our entire profession.
Yeah. And I don't want to go on this detour too much, but I think there's something to that excellence when you recognize it in someone else. It's almost on a soul level. You're
Right.
sensing it without being able to reduce it in a mechanistic way, right? Because they've
Absolutely.
gone to that level of just excellence where it's embodied and imbued and comes out. They're not thinking about each step.
For sure. I'll tell you a quick story before we move on to the next point. I was at a chiropractic conference in California called The Wave that Life West puts on every year. Now, this is a few years back now, but they had this older gentleman who was a renowned concert pianist, and they had this huge, beautiful grand piano on the stage. And I know I was one of the people that were like, "Why are we having a pianist speak to a bunch of chiropractors?" Right? But oh my God, I understood as soon as this guy was on stage, because not only was he this elegant speaker, he would emphasize his points by playing classical music. So he would say something like, if you really want to express sadness, you would play so and so from Beethoven. And he
Mm,
sat down and he started to play, and there's 1,000 people in the room crying by
mm,
playing piano. Do you know what I
mm.
mean? That's that excellence that you feel. It's like this aura of like, holy cow, this affects my soul. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm
Beautiful.
talking about, right?
Beautiful. So if someone was going to walk into a chiropractic practice that does affect their soul, what does this mean for their life?
Oh my God. In my opinion, it changes their life because now they see what's possible, right? When they walk into our office, like think of the world, right? So many people go to a job that they're not happy with, but they need the money and they just got to work, right? So many people are like that. So many people are in relationships that they're not really happy with, but they feel stuck or something like that. Or they have a sick parent or they have a sick child that like life is hard, right? Like let's just cut right to it. Life is hard, beautiful, but it's hard, right? And if they walk into our office, we instill hope to them. As soon as we shoot for excellence, people look and say, holy cow, things can actually change. If I can get rid of this inability to sleep, I can be a better husband to my partner. I can be a better father to my kid. I can actually live a better life, right?
Mm,
And if you can instill that hope because you have so much confidence because you've shot for excellence, then
mm.
I truly believe you can change people's lives, like their entire life. That's what I shoot for all the time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's such a beautiful parallel because we can see these people coming in living mediocre lives of pain and less than their full, their potential.
Right.
And that really brings us to a duty almost of moving ourselves out of mediocrity and to excellence so that we can lift up our communities.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I mean, and really, I love the word duty there, because so many people think, "Ah, not my job. Why should I do it?" Right? But the people who are extraordinary always go that extra mile. They always do that little extra that no one else does. That's what
Mm,
makes them so phenomenal, right?
mm, mm. And John, along that path, there's a lot of early mornings and bad flights and airport food and training and training. Is it hard and painful?
My brother, you know it is. I know you've been on those planes. I know you've been on those delays, right? Like, I mean, think about it. From Canada to Australia, when I went there 5 times, that's a 24-hour flight, right?
Yeah.
And you're stuck in airports that don't have restaurants sometimes. They just have vending machines. Listen, it's painful, right?
Yeah.
Like it's painful. But I always say it's just like when I trained in martial arts when I was a professional fighter. The training is hard, but you have to endure that training to be a great fighter. You have to do the things that you don't want to do to be really, really great at the things that you do want to be great at.
Mm.
Right. So, any partner I've ever had throughout the years, they always ask me that question. Oh my God, why do you keep doing this? Oh, another plane. Oh, don't you do it? And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is just part of it. This is just it. Like, is it uncomfortable? Yes. Do you have to endure it? Yes.
Mm.
That's the way it is.
Mm.
That's why I said earlier, life is hard, but it's also beautiful,
Yeah.
right? But it is difficult for all of us. Every single one of us have different challenges. So what we have to do, like the Stoics say, is just embrace our fate. Whatever cards were dealt to you, just take them. Don't complain. Play them to the best of your ability. And listen, there'll be another hand next too, right? So you have to do it, right? And I know a lot of people, they've looked at my life, they see that I traveled, they see the suits I wear, they see all this kind of stuff, and they're like, oh my God, it must be easy. I can assure you it's not easy. I can assure you of that. But I do try my best, especially now that I'm getting older. I just turned 50 last year. As I get older, I really do try to um, appreciate the moments a lot more. I think when I was younger, I was just kind of flying through the moments because I was like, let's get to the next thing. Let's get to the next thing. Because I was on such a strong mission of trying to spread knowledge as much as I could around the world. I never took the time to just sit back for a second and say, wow, we're doing pretty good, you know? And now I try to do that a lot more and in my practice too. When I was at my peak in practice, people would come in and say, oh my God, Dr. John, we're pregnant. I can't believe it. People said we were infertile. And because I've seen that so many times, I'm like, great, fabulous, lay down,
Mm.
right? Like you
Mm.
don't even think for a second to say, oh my God. Let's celebrate this moment for a minute. That's a big, big deal. You know what I mean? Let's go through that. So I do that a lot more now. But I'm guilty of just rushing through a lot of that stuff when I was younger. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And, I think, again, it's one of almost the curses of chiropractic because it is so successful. The success from our point of view for our people becomes quite routine. And so we can lose that magic in the moment. What is a huge turning point for them, whether it's, uh, you know, their body resolving years of constipation or infertility or, attention challenges or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So want to get back to one point that you raised, which is life is hard and doing the work is important to move towards excellence. And so, as you said with your training for martial arts, is this just a state of mind that we need to win, or is it about just accepting that it is hard and no matter how I reframe it, it's always going to be hard?
Well, at the end of the day, life is difficult, but I think 90% of it is mental. If you focus on how hard it is, I think that exponentially makes things much harder. If you just look at it and say, listen, yeah, it is hard. It is hard, but it has to be done. So let's just move on now. Right. People have always said to me, oh my God, don't you get jet lag? And I'm like, I have no time for jet lag. And people laugh at that because I'll literally go from Europe to Australia, to Canada, to the United States. And this is weekend after weekend after weekend. And people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't have time for jet lag. Like, I just don't have time for it. And I think that if I focused on, oh, I am a little bit tired. Wow, the 5-hour time difference is a big deal. Then I am going to have quote unquote jet lag because I'm focusing on it. But for me, I'm like, listen, I got to see patients on Monday. Like, I don't have time for jet lag. Yes, it's hard, but we got to move on.
Yeah.
Like there is no other way around it. If you ask any parent out there, if it's hard to be a parent, I'll guarantee they'll be like, oh, it's hard, right? But you can't focus just on the hard part. You got to move on, right? And listen, marriage is hard, right? I'm not married anymore, but I used to be married. Marriage is hard. So your choice is either you focus on all the hard stuff or you move on and you work things out, right? So every aspect of life is difficult, but if you focus on it, it's going to get a lot more difficult on you. If you focus on, okay, well, listen, yes, it is hard, but let's get to the solution here. It makes a hard thing a little bit easier every time.
Yeah, and I think, so much of that, and I think your life is quite a testament to it. We create the reality we want as a result of what we're focusing on. And there is an ease on the other side of the hard work. There is.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. And honestly, I think we all have to remember that if it wasn't hard, like let's pretend all of life is easy all the time. There is no way that will bring your best out. The crazy thing about things being hard and challenging is it forces all of us to bring our A game. If everything's just easy, why would we want to get better? Right? Like there's no
mm,
point, right? If everybody gets first place, what is the incentive of trying to get better? Right? So although the challenge at the time is difficult, if we look back at our lives at the most challenging points, it always brought us to the next level that we probably wouldn't have gone to that
mm,
quickly without that challenge.
mm,
Right. So, I mean, like I said, the Stoics were right. Like Epictetus always says, you know, the person who's most happiest is not the one who's focusing on the things in life that they don't have. They're just really focused on the stuff that they do have, and they're happy with that. Right. So it's literally that, man. Like,
yeah.
yes, it's hard. Yes, it's hard, but we need that challenge to get better.
Yeah. Well, that challenge is what the muscle needs if it's going to grow and stretch and do its job better, right? And that's true of a physiological muscle as it is of a neurological one or who we are in practice. So if we just translate this in the last few minutes into chiropractors who may be finding mastery of technique or communication or understanding the neurological impacts of the subluxation adjustment as hard, and knowing that pushing through, developing that muscle is where they're going to find the ease. what is the impetus to keep them going through that? What's the motivation that is really important here?
Well, number one, I think remember why you became a chiropractor in the first place, right? It's hard to sometimes hard to remember that because when you are dealing with challenges, when you are having a hard time in life, when finances are low, when you're first starting on a practice, and you're like, oh my God, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I always tell people, remember back when you got that acceptance letter in chiropractic college, and you're like so elated that you're like, here we go, I'm about to change my life, right? Remember that. The second thing is that, like I said earlier, the only way you get better at a chiropractic adjustment, the only way you get better at business, the only way you get better at life really is by having mentors or coaches or people you admire that maybe have already done this stuff and they can offer you some stepping stones on how to get there, right? So going to seminars, hiring a good coach that you bond with to help get you through those challenges, right? The business challenges, the adjusting challenges, whatever you're actually finding hard. When I was in martial arts training and competing at a professional level, I didn't train on my own. I had trainers, I had coaches, I had people picking apart my game saying, okay, let's improve this, let's improve this. And that made me an overall better fighter. Yes, I was the guy stepping in the ring. I had to go do all this stuff, but my coaches were the ones who prepared me to get there. So that's the thing I want people to remember is like there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in hiring a coach. There's no shame in going to seminars and improving yourself. I would highly recommend doing all those things so that we can remember why we became a chiropractor, still chase that excellence, and sometimes we all just need a helping hand to get to that next level. So that's what I would recommend, Amy.
Absolutely. And, I think you have done such a phenomenal job at helping so many chiropractors in terms of mastery of adjustment, communication, understanding the science. It's really important. And I'll include your links in with this podcast. And so just to finish off with two questions, looking back, especially on the last few years, and you referred to what DD and BJ set up the whole profession to do, which is really to reconnect people to be able to flow with more ease. Why is this important for the world right now that we're masterful at what we do?
Well, I think just your words, man, return things to ease. Look at our world, Nimrod. There's not a lot of ease out there right now, right? There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of uh, uh, pitting one person against another. There's a lot of that, and that all happens up here, right? No one is born prejudiced. No one is born hateful. No one that's all learned, right? Like that's the thing. Like it's individuals pointing out, oh, that person's different than you, so you shouldn't like that person. A kid doesn't know that. You know what I mean? Like a kid has no idea unless he or she is taught.
Yeah.
So I honestly think we need to be great adjusters to get the right information going to the brain, get that stressful information away from the brain so that people can logically think, right? Just logically make decisions, right? If we can do that in the world, that could make a gigantic, gigantic impact.
Mm,
And so that's why I say we have to be masters at what we do through the chiropractic adjustment and with our words.
mm,
When people are in our offices and what we're talking to them about, right? Just saying those positive things every day, even with every adjustment. Every time you adjust somebody, just sit back and say, that was beautiful, fantastic, awesome, great job. That was great. People just with that, they're like, yeah, yeah, this is good, right? Because what are they hearing most of the time? Oh, hate, bad, this sucks, you're no good. I honestly think that's the one of the biggest causes of dis-ease in our world. So we have to remove that as well.
mm. Yeah, the mental overwhelm, right? Of look for the next pain, look how bad you're aging, look how bad your life
Exactly.
is. So speaking on that topic, you've turned 50. What is on a mission for you for the next 60, 70 years or however long it happens to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, the mission will always continue in chiropractic. I'm always developing new courses to understand what we do to the brain a lot better. So always continuing to travel and I've slowed down to like before I used to be on the road about 40, 45 weekends a year. Now I'm only on the road maybe 25 weekends a year. So it's a lot less than what I did before. Still more than most people, but a lot less for me. That's still the mission. I still practice every day, so I'm still adjusting people. Over the years, I'll probably decrease my practice a little bit more so that I can just focus more on my teaching. But also keep myself in the best health possible. So the only way I can do this and travel as much as I do is because I exercise every day. I get adjusted every single week. I eat a clean 80% of the time. 20% of the time, I'm getting my cheesecake and whatever else, but 80% of the time, I'm eating very clean and I'm just surrounding myself with positive people. If people are negative and negative Nellies and just telling me what I can't do, I just can't be around those individuals. So I surround myself with just people who are positive and trying to chase greatness in their own lives, right? I do stay away from people who are happy with mediocrity. I think that that stuff can spread, right? That mentality can just spread to you. So for me, I just don't want that. I always want to be focused and driving, so be around people who are also focused and driving and whatever they're doing in their life as well. So that's the plan, my man. Keep as healthy as I possibly can so that in the next 50, 60 years or whenever the big guy upstairs decides he wants to take me, that I've always said, like myself and a good friend of mine, we were talking the other day and she asked me, she said, what drives you so hard? And I said, I've been thinking about that lately. I always thought if I met my creator and he said, John, I gave you certain gifts. Do you think that you use those gifts to the best of your ability? I want to be able to say, yes, I did everything I possibly could with the gifts that you gave me. I honed them to the best of my ability. I tried to help as many people as I could with those gifts. And then then I thought he'd ask the next question. Were you happy in your life? Did you enjoy your life? And I want to be able to say, I loved my life. I absolutely loved it. Was it difficult? Yes, but I loved every minute of it. I wish I could have lived longer to do more of it. Right. So that's what I constantly keep in my brain. When I meet my creator one day and he asks me those two questions, I want to be able to answer them in those capacities.
Yeah, and John, I've always loved your ability to focus on a long-term plan and mission and vision and bring it right into what does that require of me today and how can I do that, with love and with ease and with a lot of joy that really just emanates out from you. So, I thank you for all that you do. Thank you for this time. I know that you're going to continue to have a huge impact on this profession and on the world as a result of that. And just as we close off, is there any closing message you'd love to share with chiropractors as they're listening to this?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you, my brother. I've known you a long time, and man, it's good to see you. And you look great, by the way. You look fabulous, man. So good job for keeping yourself so
Thank you.
healthy. Look forward to seeing you again in person.
Yes, definitely.
But the message I would like to say to everybody is never underestimate how powerful you are. Never underestimate the gifts that God has given you, that the universe has given you. Like you have been chosen in some capacity to help humanity. So never underestimate that. Never underestimate the power of the chiropractic adjustment that you have been taught, and never underestimate how many lives you can impact. And I really mean that. You can impact people's lives, and that really, really matters. You really, really matter. So don't ever forget.
Ah, I can't finish up on any better way. So thank you for your time, John. Thank you for all that you do.
Thanks, brother.